Hey, what's up everyone? Welcome back to Babylon Talmud. Today we're studying Daf Tes of Masechta Brachos. It's the last daf that is talking about like Hilchos Eruvin and stuff like that, but it really goes out with the boom, you know. There's some hard stuff over here. I guess it's just a little teaser for actually learning Eruvin, just to let us know like, hey, get ready, because yeah, it's pretty intense. But at the same time, you know, this page is like everything that is insane and everything that is amazing about learning Gemara. It's literally like, you know, the first Amud is like you want to pull your hair out and you're just, you know, going nuts. And then the second Amud is just like all smiles and beautiful and love. So it's pretty nuts. Yeah, if people are familiar with like, different kinds of trips, so this, maybe add this one to your list. Anyways, the Gemara trip. Anyways, okay, Daf Tes, Daf Tes, here we go, starting from the top. So Acherim Omer, and there's actually a shout out to Yisrael. Shout out to Yisrael from a few months ago. I've mentioned it a few times about the Acherim being Rabbi Meir. So we actually have a Rashi, it's at the bottom of the page, but I'll just say it now because it's on my mind. There's a Rashi says, Omer Hayi Rabbi Meir Tehu Acherim. Oh, so says Rabbi Meir, and Rabbi Meir is Acherim. So there we go. It's settled. All the back and forth we had about, is Acherim really Rabbi Meir? Apparently it really is. Okay, Acherim Omer, say Acherim. Iskopa Mishameshes Shtei Reshuyos. So Iskopa is a threshold to a door. Okay, like the photo that I put into the WhatsApp group. It's that area like right in front of the door. And iskopes mishamesh shtei reshuyos. That the iskopes can be, it can be either of one of two reshuyos. When the door to the house, well, when it doesn't say the house, it says when the door is open, so it's considered like inside. Pesach no kalachutz. If the door is closed, so then it's considered this threshold area is considered like the outside, like Rosh Hashanah. Okay. That's a question. So even though it doesn't have a lechi, so do you guys remember what a lechi is? So a lechi is that, okay. So we're going to assume right now that this is talking about a mavoi, right? If you remember the mavoi off of Main Street, there's like an alleyway. There's like an alleyway that goes off of Main Street, and then there's different chaseros that open into the mavoi. So now the thing is, in order to be able to carry in that mavoi, you have to have a lechi, which is like a vertical kind of pole right before the Rosh Hashanah that says like, hey guys, careful, you're entering into Rosh Hashanah, you're not going to be able to carry there. Okay, and basically we're talking about a situation where the lechi is a little bit inside of the alley. Okay, so therefore what you have over here is you have a Rosh Hashanah. Then you have this mavoi off, this alleyway off of Rosh Hashanah. There's like a threshold to pass into this mavoi. The lechi is past the threshold, right? And so therefore, you know, the flow, the cross from the threshold into Rosh Hashanah is without any kind of indication that Rosh Hashanah begins at the threshold. So the question is, even though there's no lechi there in the threshold, because the lechi is further into the mavoi, so are you still allowed to, would you still be allowed to carry, would that still be considered a Rishus Hayachid, and you'd be able to carry there? But I thought you're not allowed to carry in a mavoi that doesn't have a lechi. Ve'amar Rav Chama bar Guria, Amar Rab, didn't Rav Chama bar Guria say in the name of Rab, that Tocha Pesach tzarich lechi, that the threshold, the area between the walls of the mavoi need a lechi in order to carry there. Lechi acher latiro, it would need an additional lechi in order to carry there, meaning even though you have the first lechi in the mavoi, which is, you know, further inside than the threshold, if you want to be able to carry in the area of the threshold, you would need to have another lechi between the threshold and the Rishus Harabim in order to be able to carry in this threshold. So v'chitema delays beit daled al daled. So maybe you'll say, yeah, but the threshold is less than 4 tefachim by 4 tefachim. And if it's less than 4 tefachim by 4 tefachim, then it's not considered a reshus. And therefore, if it's not a reshus, so then you shouldn't need to have another lechi in order to count there. I guess it'll just be considered like a makom p'tur. V'amar Rav Chama bar Guria amar Rav tocha pesach afal pi she'ein bo daled al daled tzarich lechi. Right? That within the Pesach, even though it doesn't have a area of 4 tefachim by 4 tefachim, you would still need a lechi. So Amarav Yehuda Amarav Hacha be'iskopes mavo yaskinan chetzio mikora v'chetzio eino mikora v'keruyo klape pnim Pesach pasuach kilifnim Pesach nol kilachutz. So Yehuda says in the name of Rav, here it's talking about where you have a threshold, sure, and it's 4 tefachim by 4 tefachim, and instead of a lechi in this mavui, you have a korah, okay, which is a beam that goes from one side of the mavui to the other side of the mavui, okay, and that is sort of the heker to say like, hey people, past here is going to be reshus harabim. Now, what we're saying is that the area that is under this beam, you would be allowed to carry in it, because Acherim holds, Rabbi Meir holds, that the area under the beam of the threshold, you would be allowed to carry. Past the area of the beam, you would not be allowed to carry. And that is what Acherim is saying, that when you have a threshold, and there's a beam above the threshold, and then there's a door in the mavui, so you can actually close the mavui, but when you close the mavui, this beam is outside, right? It serves kind of as like the doorpost as well. So therefore, when you close the door, so the beam is outside of the door, so therefore it's considered part of reshus harabim, right? And that's what it means that it's na'ul kilachutz, right? That when the door is closed, so then this beam is outside of the door, right? And it's considered part of reshus harabim. When the doors are open, however, so under the beam is considered part of the reshus hayachid, and you would be allowed to carry under the beam. Ravashi Amar La'olam Be'iskopes Bayis Askinan. Ravashi says we're not talking about a mavri here, we're talking about a house, okay? And the doorway of the house has a threshold to the house, and it also is covered on top, right? And that's the doorpost. However, it's a funny kind of doorpost. Uchugon Shakira B'shtei Koros She'en Bazo Arba Ve'en Bazo Arba Ve'en Bein Zo Lazo Shlosha V'delas Be'emtza Pesach Pasuach Kilifnim Pesach Nol Kilachutz. Okay. So here this is talking about, you have a regular house and there's a doorway to the house. Now, above the doorway is not just like kind of a regular kind of doorpost. Above it is sort of, you have one beam, and it's not 4 tefachim by 4 tefachim, because if it was, then it would be its own reshus, and that is its own sort of halachas. But here it's less than 4 tefachim by 4 tefachim, and then there's a space, and then there's another beam that's less than 4 tefachim by 4 tefachim. So neither beam is a reshus in its own right, and in between the two beams is less than 3 tefachim, which means that we're going to say lavud. So when the door is open, so it's ki'ilu, the two beams are connected, and we're going to say lavud, and they will be between the whole area between the two beams and the area in between. It will be more than 4 tefachim, and it will be a reshus ha-yachid. That is when the door is open. However, when the door is closed, and the Gemara says that the door closes in the space between these two beams, right? Therefore, when the door is closed, so then, there's the beam that is outside of the door is considered part of reshus harabim, and you wouldn't be able to carry under that beam that is outside of the door. However, when the door is open, because we connect these two beams via lavud, so then you would be able to carry in this threshold. Okay. Vim haisa iskopa gavoa gimel urchava dalid. If the iskopa, if the threshold was 10 tfachim tall, urchava dalid, and 4 tfachim wide, hariza reshus latzma. Well, then it would be considered its own reshus. Okay, fine. So and we're saying that you wouldn't be allowed to carry there, which is interesting, right? That if you have this door, this threshold that is before the reshus harabim, right? It's before the it's not before the reshus harabim. It is before the house, right? Right? So it's a threshold of a house, and it has 10 tefachim tall and 4 tefachim wide. So it would be its own rishus, and we're saying that you're not allowed to carry from the rishus hayachid, i.e. from the house, into this threshold, which is also rishus hayachid. So Mesayele Rav Yitzchak bar Avdimi, this helps Rav Yitzchak bar Avdimi. The Amar Rav Yitzchak bar Avdimi, Omer Haya Rabbi Meir, so that Rav Yitzchak bar Avdimi says that Rabbi Meir would say, Kol makom shata motzi beis rishuyos vein rishus achas, that whenever you find 2 rishuyos and they're 1 rishus, Kigon, Amud Rishus Hayachid, Gavoa Yud Rachav Daled. Like, for example, if you have, let's say, a Chatzer, which is a Rishus Hayachid, right? Let's say just outside your house, you have your yard, and that's a Rishus Hayachid. It's in fence. Fine. But in your yard, there's some kind of beam, pillar, and that pillar is 10 tefachim tall, and it's 4 tefachim wide. So it's its own Rishus Harabim inside another Rishus Harabim. Also, the Chatef Alav Gezer Mishum Tel Rishus Harabim. It's also to, put something down on there, even though it's all Rishus Hayachid, because we're concerned about, if you put something down on this pillar in Rishus Hayachid, you might end up putting something down on a little mound in Rishus Harabim. That mound is 4 tefachim wide and 10 tefachim tall, so it's its own Rishus Hayachid. And if you're in Rishus Harabim, you wouldn't be allowed to put it down in Rishus Hayachid. So because that wouldn't be allowed, we also say that in your house, in a Rishus Hayachid, where there's this beam, this pillar, which would also be a Rishus Hayachid, you can't put something down on that either. Wow. Oh my gosh. And with that we conclude the first Mishnah of Masechta Shabbos. That Mishnah just wants to chew you up and spit you out. Oh my gosh. It's like a warning sign, get ready for Erevin. I don't even know what to do with it. What I know what to do with it is to say, Erevin's going to be something. But it'll be fun. Okay, new Mishnah. A person shouldn't go get a haircut close to mincha. We're going to explain what that means, close to mincha, although the interesting thing to note, for now, is that close means within a half an hour. Okay? You should pray first. Okay? So if it's close to mincha, we're going to explain what it means by close to mincha, but if it's close to mincha, don't first get a haircut. Rather, first you should daven mincha and then get a haircut. A person shouldn't go to the bathhouse. He shouldn't go to the tannery. And he shouldn't eat anything. And he shouldn't start a court case. And if you do start, don't worry about it. You don't have to stop. So we stop in order to read Kriya Shema, but not for tefillah, right? So it sounds like if you were getting a haircut or something like that, and it became Zman Kriya Shema, you would say Kriya Shema, but mistama that means if it's Kriya Shema is ending. Honestly, I'm not exactly sure what this means. Maybe the Gemara is going to ask about that. But we're saying over here, though, that at least when it comes to praying, you wouldn't have to interrupt your haircut in order to pray when it becomes time to pray. Okay, fine. Hey, samuch lemincha. So when we say that when it gets close to mincha, then you shouldn't get a haircut, what are we talking about? Right? We're talking about Mincha Gedola, Mincha Ketana. If you remember back to the 4th parak of Masechta Brachos, right? Mincha Gedola is 6.5 hours into the day, right? 6.5 hours into a 12-hour day. Mincha Ketana is 9.5 hours into the 12-hour day, okay? Which, if you remember our perfect day, so that would be 12:30 p.m. and 3:30 p.m. respectively. So, hey, Samuch Mincha, you live in the Mincha Gedola. If you say that we're talking about Mincha Gedola, well, Amai Lo, why can't you get a haircut? Hayika Shaus B'Yom Tuva. There's plenty of time between Mincha Gedola, right? Meaning, if we're saying Samuch Mincha Gedola starts at, in our perfect day at 12:30 p.m. So a half an hour before that is noon. And you can daven Mincha all the way until 6 p.m. on our perfect day. You have 6 hours to daven Mincha. Why can't you get a haircut? Fine, so it means Mincha Ketana. Mincha Ketana is 3:30 p.m. on our perfect day. So at 3 o'clock p.m. you shouldn't go to get a haircut. Rather daven first. But one second, we said im eschilu ein mafsikin. But we said that, but if you do start, then you don't have to stop. So let's say, on our perfect day, at 3 p.m., you start eating a meal. Okay? And now it's 3:30 p.m., it's Mincha time. Or Mincha Ketana time. Okay? And we're saying that, don't worry, you don't have to stop your meal, you can keep on eating. Well, name it Tavat Yufta Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi. Well, then this Mishnah sounds like it would be a basically a knockout for Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi. Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi, that if you remember, Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi said on Daf Chav Chesam Abez Brachis, that once mincha arrives, you can't eat anything until you first daven mincha. So how could this Mishnah possibly say that don't start eating your meal a half an hour before mincha? But if you did, you don't have to stop. What do you mean you don't have to stop? Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi says that once mincha time arrives, you don't eat anything until you daven mincha. But this seems to say, but if Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi was right, then you would have to stop, because once it becomes mincha time, you can't eat anything. So the olam samuch lemincha gedola. No, so really it is talking about mincha gedola. What about the fact that you have 6 hours to daven mincha? What's the big deal? Why can't I get a haircut or eat or something like that? Uvitispores ben el ashe. Oh, but it's talking about getting a very fancy kind of haircut. The haircuts that Ben Elashe would give. Ben Elashe, Rashi says, was the son-in-law of Rebbe, and he invested his money, or he paid a bunch of money in order to learn how to do the haircut of the Kohen Gadol. Now, the haircut of the Kohen Gadol, I believe the Gemara in Sanhedrin talks about it. Basically, you would cut one hair until basically it was cut in such a way that every hair kind of touched the root of the next hair or something like that. Anyways, if you're getting this kind of a haircut, it would take quite a while. So that's what we're talking about. So even though you still have 6 hours until mincha, don't get this kind of fancy haircut. Right? When we say don't go to the bathhouse, that means if you want to do the full bathhouse package, right? If you've been to the Rashi actually explains, he explains, the full package, la chufrosho, to get some kind of, that just means to shampoo his head, I guess, but ulishtatev b'chamen uvitzonen ulazia, to schwitz, to go in the cold and the hot, right? It sounds like the Turkish baths in the East Village. Maybe they're going to get a plaza too. I don't know. Alright, I think that's what it's called. Maybe Fali could confirm. The plaza. That's a funny thing. Alright, anyways. V'lo lemerchatz l'chul milsa, to get the full package. V'lo leborski gedola, right? When it says don't go to the tannery, it means don't go right at the beginning when there's lots of hides to tan, and they're at the beginning where there needs a lot of work. So that's what it means. V'lo le'echol b'suda gedola, and don't eat a really big feast. Because these are all things that can take a long time. Don't start the beginning of a court case, right? Because these things can go on for a really long time, so don't get started. Really, it's talking about just a regular haircut. Alright, well then, well, if it's just a regular haircut, then why can't I get a regular haircut when I still have 6 hours to spare before the end of the day? So Gzera Shema Yishaber Azug. Okay, we're concerned that maybe the just what you thought was just a regular haircut will turn into a whole ordeal because the scissors might break, and you'll be stuck, and you'll might end up somehow missing mincha. And actually, when we say don't go to the bathhouse, it's just for a regular schwitz, not the full package. Okay, but then then why not? Gezerah Shema Yis Alpha. Well, you might faint. Alright. V'lo leborski, and when we say not to go to the tannery, it's le'iyune be'alma. It's just it's not at the beginning when there's lots of work to be done to the hides. It's even just later on when you're just doing a rudimentary check to make sure everything's cool. So what's the problem? Right? Because later on, I imagine there's probably, after you do the initial processing, I imagine you just got to let them sit out for a while. There's really not much to be done. Unless I don't know what I'm talking about, which I don't. But hopefully, the fact that I don't know what I'm talking about doesn't mean that I said something wrong. So, l'chatchila mailo, well then why can't you go l'chatchila? Because dilma chazi pseida b'zebine umatrid. Because maybe when he goes, he'll find out that there's actually something wrong with all these hides, and they're all, there's an emergency here, they're all going bad. And then, as we learned from Daf Yud Aleph of Brachis, right, if a person is tarud, he won't be able to focus on mitzvahs, right? We said that's why a chassan on the night of his wedding is parted from Kriyash Shema, because he won't be able to pay attention. So, because he's going to be tarud, and he won't be able to focus on Kriyash Shema. So here also, right? If he's tarud, right? And we even said tava sfinaso bayam, right? What if a person's ship is sinking, so he won't be able to think? Do we say that he's part of Kriyas Shema? So we say no, he still does have to say Kriyas Shema, but the point is he won't be able to think, right? So here also, right, very similar situation to tava sfinaso bayam. Here he walks into his tannery, realizes that all the hides are somehow getting ruined, so he's not going to be able to daven. So therefore, even just a rudimentary check, he shouldn't do before davening. V'lo le'echol b'suda ketana. You shouldn't even eat a small suda because l'chatchila amai lo. Why not? Tilma asilam shuche. Because who knows? Maybe what he thought was a small meal, maybe his friend will stop by and then they'll end up taking out bottles of wine and all the good stuff, and they'll, next thing you know, they miss mincha. V'lo ladin, and not to judgment. Bigmardin. Even just to give the verdict. Well, because maybe when you go to give the verdict, all of a sudden new evidence is going to surface, and you'll end up being soser everything up until now, and have to start all over again, and it'll end up being in the beginning of the din. Okay. At what point is it considered the beginning of the haircut? That at that point you don't have to interrupt, but before then you would say, wait, let me daven mincha first. So Rav Avin, so Rav Avin says, from when they put the wrapping of the barber on your knees, i.e. when they put on that thing that they cover you with during the haircut. At what point is it considered that you have begun to bathe and you wouldn't interrupt in order to daven? So Rav Avin, when he takes off his first article of clothing, at that point he's already in it, and he doesn't have to stop to daven. At what point are you considered in the tannery? From when you tie the apron between your shoulders. At what point is it considered that you have begun eating? So Rav says from when he washes his hands to eat, and Rabbi Chanina says from the time that he loosens his belt. Okay, and they actually don't argue, right? The Rabbi Chanina says from the time that you loosen your belt, it's for the people in Bavel who had shtickle boich over there. I guess they wore, well, Rashi says that they wore their belts tighter. I wonder if that's just a nice way of saying their belts kind of fit tighter. They were shtickle bal basar. And then, whereas in Eretz Yisrael, of course, they probably didn't have any food. So I guess they wore their belts looser. I don't know if that was necessarily intentional or just by circumstance. But anyways, so in Eretz Yisrael it would be from the time that they wash their hands. In Bavel it would be from the time that they loosen their belts. Wow, okay. So it looks like we're done with all the Rishus HaRabim and Rishus HaYachid stuff, at least for the time being. Thanks everybody. I hope you enjoyed. Have a great day. Peace out.